workshop. My name is Jerry Hilligus, and I'm here with Tammy Miller.
Hi.
A couple things we want to mention before we get started. We're going to have everybody's phones muted while we're going through the presentation, and then after we're done, we will open it up for question and answer for everybody. And there's a couple ways we can do this. If you want to, just take notes while we're going through it, and we can go through your questions after. Or you can email your. Okay. You can email your questions directly to us right now at info@lfaga.org. And at the end, we'll go through your questions and get everybody taken care of there. Okay, let me go back up here a little bit. Okay, my name, like I said, I'm Jerry Hilligus. I'm on the left. We've got Tammy, her picture on the right. I've had lupus for 27 years. I was diagnosed in 1991. I had symptoms starting in 1990. And I've been involved with the Lupus Foundation for about 6 years now. Tammy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Tammy Miller, and I have been diagnosed with lupus for about 13 years now. I was diagnosed in 2005, but I have had symptoms all the way back to 1996, but had not been diagnosed till 2005. So I have also been with the Georgia Foundation, involved with them for about 6 years now, doing advocacy work as well as being a support group leader for different support groups. And I am so glad that you guys could come and be with us today.
Okay. Okay, and again, there's the email address if you want to go ahead and send any questions in while we're going through this.
It's info@lfaga.org. Right.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to talk about why you need to tell your story. I said you can affect change. This workshop is really geared towards writing your story for Advocacy Day, which is on March 1st, and we're hoping that you will all join us there. We need to let our legislators know why we are there at the Capitol lobbying them. They need to hear what lupus is, what it has done to your life, and how it has made a difference in your life. You can see things more in perspective when you write your story. Sometimes simply writing it out, your experiences helps you to make a sense of what's going on with your life and your body when you actually write it out and see. It took me a long time to write my story. It's a very emotional thing. And as I started writing it, going through that step of pulling things out of my mind and things that have happened to me, and realizing all the different things that I had actually been through. There's healing power in telling your story. It allows the listeners to understand what you have been going through and the opportunities, to give them ways to support you. I use my story to help with the fundraising for the walk. I post on Facebook. When I put my link on Facebook, I tell people, look, I've written my story. If you'd like to read it, I'll be happy to email you a copy. And I have had so many people say, yes, I want to read your story. And you'd be surprised once they read it and what you have really been going through, because, you realize you don't tell people everything that's going on because you think, nobody wants to hear it. I'm just going to keep it to myself and tell everybody I'm fine. Well, when you do give them your story and they sit down and actually read it, they're going, wow, I had no idea that you were going through this and what you have been through. And it really does help with fundraising because they're like, wow, yeah, okay, you really need to find a cure for this. So that's how I use it. And you also use it to educate them just by telling them about, what is going on with your life and how it's affected you. So now we're going to get into actually writing your story. You need to have effective storytelling and prioritize your message. You know, at the beginning, there are several different styles of writing. Everyone has their own way of telling it. Some people use an outline format where they, actually list out in broken down paragraphs on their life. And then the way I do my story, I like to do it like I'm having a conversation with somebody instead of outlined, just like I'm sitting down and just talking to them about it. Of course, start with your name. Remember, this is going to your legislators, so you want to start with your name. You want to, if you were working before you were diagnosed with lupus, tell a little bit about what you were doing before you had lupus. And I mean, I was a computer specialist and I did traveling, and I mean, I was working 80 hours a week and things that I can't do anymore. Who were you without lupus? What kind of things were you doing? I was doing jazzercise all the time and the traveling and just, being social, more social than I am now. I can't do things like that anymore. The date you were diagnosed, let them know how long have you been diagnosed with lupus. It's really important. Some of you, it's only going to be a few months if you're newly diagnosed, and there's some of you like me, it's been 27 years now. And they need to know how long it's really affected you. How long did it take you to get diagnosed? I was fortunate enough, it only took about 6 months for me to get diagnosed. Mine was triggered by my pregnancy. I had a terrible pregnancy, but they kept telling me, oh, it's from your pregnancy, all the problems I was having. But when the symptoms didn't go away after I had my son, that's when I realized I needed to see a regular doctor. And I had a very good doctor that knew what to test for. Some of you, it can take years. It just depends on your symptoms and finding a doctor that, knows what to be looking for. So let them know how long it took you to get diagnosed. All right, turn it over to Tammy for the meat of it.
Okay. So for the meat of your story, you want to let people know how lupus has affected your life. So in the meat of your story, you want to let them know how physically lupus has affected your life. You want to let them know, how many pills are you taking? Are you taking chemo? Are you on dialysis? Are you waiting for a kidney? How many hospital trips are you in the hospital now while you're writing your story? If you've had hospital trips, how long have your stays have been? And you also want to let them know if you're still able to work. Before you might have been a very successful person in your chosen career, and now you might have had to give that up. You might have had to go part-time because you can't do as much as you can because lupus has affected your life. You want to also let them know how many doctors are you seeing. It's not just a rheumatologist that lupus patients see lots of times. You have some people have neurologists, they have cardiologists, they have what do you call it? Pulmonologists and nephrologists. That's the one I was thinking about. Nephrologists. So let them know, how many types of doctors that you do have. You want to let them know mentally how lupus has affected you. As in, I know that I deal with depression and anxiety, and like just shown just a minute ago, the memory loss. So you do want to let them know how this disease affects your life. So it can also affect you socially. A lot of people don't think about these things. They don't think, oh, socially, what do you mean? Well, I used to be very outgoing. I used to throw dinner parties. I'd always love to go out and be around people and just go dancing, everything like that. Well, now I'm more isolated. Sometimes I miss functions. Um, I feel like doing things, but then when it comes down to it, or that day, I'm just too tired to do it. I don't feel like it. I'm sick and I'm not able to go. And I'm sure everyone can relate to that. Um, and then there's the paranoia side of it. And I'm not talking about the schizophrenic side. I'm talking about, which it could be, but I'm talking about the paranoia that I experience sometimes, as in, I think my friends might not like me anymore. They will think that I'm not dependable because I try to say yes to go out and do things, or to help out in a fundraiser or something. And then I have to call and say, I can't do it because of how I feel. So I start thinking to myself, oh, she's not dependable. Let's not even ask her. Oh, you can't depend on her. So that's the paranoia I'm talking about. And your real true friends understand. They do understand, but sometimes you can't help but think certain things like that when you're dealing with a disease like lupus. And then also the financial part. You want to let your legislators know this does affect you financially. You have doctor's bills, you have added hospital visits, medicines, you have to go to different doctors and get lab works, and then you have the loss of income. You might have been full time working. You might have been working 1, 2, 3 jobs possibly. Well, now because of lupus, it has you've had to cut back. You work part time, and some people can't work at all. So they need to know that this has affected you financially as well. And some people don't have insurance because of the loss of income. There's no insurance. And so that is another financial burden that a lot of us have. So those are some effects that lupus does have on us, and you need to let them know that. Now, in closing your story, not this seminar, but in closing your story, what are you advocating for? That's what you want to let them know. What are you advocating for? You want to let them know that we are advocating for federal and state funding. We are advocating that we get this federal and state funding for research for new drugs targeted specifically for lupus, um, and drugs that are specifically for lupus without the toxic side effects. And ultimately, we want federal state funding for finding a cure for this horrible disease. And these are things that we need to let them know that that is what we are advocating for. Now, next we're going to show you, give you examples of different ways of how your story can look. Now, I'm going to show you an example of my story, and this is on the big picture of things. It is what it looks like. We do suggest that if you can, it would be greatly appreciated if you can go ahead and find a picture and put it with your story. If you don't want to actually have it on your story, you can staple it, or use a paper clip and clip it on. But try to find a story to put along with your, put a picture. Thank you. Put a picture on with your story. Now this is how I did it. I call it like a sandwich, and I use the analogy. It helps me understand how to do it. But like the introduction would be the top bun of your sandwich, or like a hamburger. And then the meat of the story, basically how lupus has affected your life, that's the meat of it. And then the closing, which would be your, what you're advocating for. And so this is what it looks, full length, but we're going to show you how it looks broken down. So on mine, I just kind of did introduction. It's more like an outline form, which Jerry had talked about earlier. So this is just, I basically said, who I am, what I did. And sometimes it's hard to get all this information in a small little nutshell. So if you can think of 5 adjectives that you could describe yourself before lupus, If you could think of 5 adjectives of how you were, and then think of 5 adjectives that you are now or you feel now. Sometimes that will help you kind of pinpoint, that make it a little bit more direct and do those little bullet points that these legislatures can focus in on and know. So basically, that is what that is for the introduction on that. Then I have the meat of my story, which I just put how lupus has affected my world. The thing is, a lot of people say lupus has affected me. Well, it's not just you, it is your world. It doesn't affect just you, it affects the people around you, the people you love, your friends, your work environment, your home life. So let them know. Let them know. They have to know. They need to know so we can get this taken care of and get funding. And then lastly, this is what we're advocating for. And this is just an example of the outline form. And I'm going to let Jerry share her story and show how she did hers.
Okay, mine I did more as a conversation. Started off with my basic introduction about me, my life, how what I was doing before lupus. I'm gonna go ahead and take it to the breakdown. Then the kind of the heart of it is when my symptoms started, when I was diagnosed. One of the more crucial happenings that in my life after I was diagnosed, when I found out lupus had affected my brain and I ended up having to get into cytotoxic chemotherapy. Things like that are very impactful. And this is your story, okay? Get those details in there. Find those crucial things that have happened, if they have happened to you since you've been diagnosed with lupus. They need to see that. They need to read about how you had dealt with that. Then I got into things like all the prescriptions and the expenses. How it hits us in the wallet. It's been a huge burden. The high costs of healthcare, which are getting higher and higher every year. Copays are going up. Drug costs are going up. Everything is. MRIs. I needed an MRI and it went up over $200 in a year. So, they need to be aware of this. This testing that we have to go through is getting ridiculous. We've got to get the funding for it. So make sure your legislators know what we are actually, we're asking them for. Okay. Final thoughts about this, and then we'll open up for questions in a couple minutes. With my story, what I did was I have 2 versions of it. I have the condensed version, which is what I use for advocacy. And then I have a more detailed version, which is what I give out to friends and family. This is really detailing everything that I have gone through in my life since I was diagnosed with lupus. When you write your stories, you want to be truthful. Give all the details you want. Write it from your heart. The more personal you can get with this, the more impactful it will be. Give the details, but for your legislation, keep it, you want the details, but you got to be able to keep it readable and condensed so that, the legislators won't say, oh, this is just too long, I'm going to and toss it. You want them to read it. These stories are a very powerful way to educate them. It really gives the people an idea of what you are going through on a daily basis. This isn't something that comes and goes. You are dealing with it every single day. So be sure and share your story, from your heart. This is your life. Get it out there and share it with everybody. Okay. Now, a few things, those of you that are going to the Capitol on March 1st. You need to be sure and bring 4 copies of your story with you. Now, please be aware that you may not get to meet your senator or representatives, but their offices are there, and you will be able to drop off your stories with their aides at their offices. So you'll want to be sure and bring copies of your stories with you. Now, if you are not going to be attending, you can email your stories to your officials. And if you'll look on here, there's a website that you can go to that you'll be able to find the contact information for each of your legislators. So be sure and use that if you're not going to be going. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you'll have 2 representatives and 2 senators that you'll need to, and the aides that you'll need to give your stories to. So just be sure and have enough copies with you. Okay. Tammy?
Okay. So to end everything here, well, not end it, but lupus does matter. Lupus matters. Your story matters. Your story matters, not just a story. Your story matters. We need you. We need you. We need you to be there and advocate for yourself and for all of those who suffer with lupus. And as we say, intention without cause won't move the needle. Intention without action won't move the needle. There goes my memory again. So, but intention without action won't move the needle. So we can intend to do everything and but without the action, nothing's going to change and nothing's going to move. And you can advocate if you can't go down to the advocacy day. At least you can write your story, because your story does matter and we do need you. And writing a story is an action that you can take to help move that needle. So now we're going to go ahead and try to open up for the questions. Just give us a minute here for us to get adjusted and get some information here.
Yeah, we unmuted everybody. I'm going to check.
Okay. And does everybody, okay, everybody is open?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So does anybody have any questions at the moment?
I sent in this is Gladys, I sent in a question relative to the fact that I am not the lupus person. I'm the parent of a lupus person, and it impacts everybody, but I think the lens that I could provide gives a perspective of the overall what it's like from seeing my daughter going through these.
Oh, definitely. You can be very impactful with a story, writing your own story from a different perspective. Most definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that is
so
good.
Welcomed. Absolutely welcomed. We need that.
Yeah, please write a story. Definitely. Yeah. You can tell what you go through and what your daughter is going through, what you are seeing her go through, and how as a parent that affects you.
Yeah.
That would be very, very effective. So Gladys, thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, please bring a story. Are you going to be there on the 1st?
That is my intention, and good intention.
Fantastic.
I usually put it in action.
Yeah, that is excellent.
Yes, and for anybody else, these stories are not stories just for you. It's for your friends and your family. If they want to write their stories, please invite them to do so, because every story is important.
Do we submit these stories to you prior to, and you put the logo on?
No. If you have a picture of yourself, you want people to see you. You want them to see who what they're looking, the face behind the story.
Okay.
Put your own. This is all about you, not the Lupus Foundation, but about you. So,
you will be taking them to the Capitol with you, or if you can't make it, then you go ahead and email them to your legislator, or you can snail mail it to them. You can just send it through the mail to them. But you need to get the stories to the legislator.
Okay.
Yeah, and put your contact information on your stories as well. I suggest that because then they can get back in touch with you. They can, after they read your story, then they can reach out to you and, connect with you. And that's the important thing. You want to get connected with these legislators, these senators and House of Representatives.
yeah, you want to make it personal.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Gladys.
Any other questions? Anybody?
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Stephanie Reed. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Stephanie.
Gladys. Hi. Thanks so much for that question because I'm an advocate for lupus. My mom had it. I mean, Terry knows my entire story. I don't have lupus, but it seems like everybody that I am close to has had it. So I'm glad that she asked that question because I think that the legislation needs to know how it impacts family and friends.
Exactly.
And, just watching my mother, just listening to you, I was almost about to cry. I was like, I got to go way back now and think, but anyway, on that note, thanks, Gladys, for the question, because I was wondering, I'm like, well, do I have to have it? Or, I just want to be an advocate.
Okay.
That's all.
Are you going to be there on the 1st also?
Yeah, that's my intention. Yeah,
okay.
That's my intention.
Great.
Yeah.
Get
thank you.
Friends and family to come. The more people we can get, the better.
Yeah, my sister-in-law was just diagnosed with lupus, but I'm
sorry, say that
I don't know
again.
her. I was saying that my sister-in-law was just recently diagnosed with lupus, maybe 2 years ago.
Oh goodness.
And, but no, she's doing great. She's doing fine. And
Does she live here?
But anyway, yes, she lives here.
Oh, try and get her to come. I mean, it can be very powerful for her, especially being so new. She can see, how much support she does have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, she's a teacher, so
yeah.
I'll have to see. But she's gonna be my my student. So I'm gonna question her and some of the questions that was discussed today about how it made you feel, once you were diagnosed, because it's very hard to diagnose lupus.
Yes.
And I have a baby shower, so she'll be there. So I'm going to just run that by her. But I just appreciate this, that we can have and family and friends can have a voice.
Well, great.
That's great.
That's excellent. Thank you.
And Stephanie.
Also, thank you for that, Stephanie.
Stephanie, as an advocate, I've signed up for an advocate, but do you or Terry or forget the other name, anyone have a group that you lend support to the children? Like my granddaughter's 15, and 15 in itself is tough. 15 having your mom in and out of the hospital. But like my daughter was in the hospital 6 times between April and September.
Wow.
Last year, and it's tough. It's tough on everybody.
That story.
I know it is.
That story needs to be told because that again shows how lupus affects your world and your children.
Yeah.
Ages, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, lupus doesn't discriminate against age for sure. Yeah.
No, right, but I would like to know if there's a group for kids, like what their parents are going through.
That would be great.
We have, this is Terry Iman. We have thought about starting a group like that. What we would need to do is get a professional counselor to facilitate something like that. We have not done it, but it's definitely something on our radar, and we've heard this before. So thank you again for bringing that to our attention.
Okay.
Great. Anybody else have any questions about advocacy or story writing?
I wanted to add to that about her daughter having lupus. I'm sorry to hear that. My best friend was diagnosed at the age of 15, and that was back in 1981, and she is doing well now. So just hang in there. I know I met a girl, and Sarah, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but at the walks, I met young kids at the walks, and they're like getting bullied. They have to take the medicine that makes the moon face. So But I'm just saying that all to say, but hang in there with her, and don't. It could be so depressing and discouraging. You know what I mean? And maybe if she has somebody else, like a support, we used to call it a pen pal back in the day. I guess I'm telling my age.
Yeah.
But somebody else that they can sort of do stuff together and stay uplifted in it, if that makes sense. So anyway.
My daughter is 44, so that tells you my age is kind of up there. She was diagnosed when she was 32.
Oh, wow.
So we've been on this roller coaster. It was pretty steady for a while, but this last 2017 was just horrendous.
Yeah.
And seeing it from this side, being involved and trying to help her, you can also step over too far, and then you back up because they're feeling you're too intrusive. There's a whole lot psychologically that goes on.
You thought about,
I've done a lot of research and
doing a journal of your journey with your daughter.
I have booklets, and I have a bunch of stuff.
Well, that's good because you could use that, and that could be thought of as taking action in advocacy. You might want to think about sharing that, maybe, if that would be something to share to help other people. So thank you very much for all that information, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help each other. Going back to the Advocacy Day, some people have issues about maybe traveling there or getting there. If you have people in your lupus support groups that may, or people, maybe you can meet somewhere and just get an Uber. Maybe you could share an Uber ride down. They would just bring you down there, drop you off, and then when you're ready to come back, just call for the Uber, share it, and then take you back to your cars. And then you would not have any problems whatsoever with parking or anything. A lot of times, people who are working, they can take days off sometimes if they ask, and if you can let them know. I know at schools for children, I know my daughter and her friend there's an excuse that you can do because it's kind of like a community service. So they were given permission to miss that day. So there are ways to be able to participate if you can, and if you can't, that's okay. Just being supportive and writing stories, or just speaking, and everybody's story is important, not just people who have lupus, but like you guys were saying, friends and families, and from that perspective, it's very, very important.
Will we get additional information on where to meet? I think it was from 8:30 to 2, but where do we meet at the Capitol?
The details will go out to everybody who's registered, along with who your representatives are, a few days beforehand. We'll have the agenda for the day. Down at the Capitol, things often change. They change up until the day of our Lupus Awareness Day, because if some kind of legislative agenda comes up, our room might get changed. Might get swept around. So we generally don't send that information until a day or two ahead of time. So you will get all of that.
All right. Be on the lookout.
Yes.
And you could sign up. Just go to the Lupus
I did.
website, and yes, there you go. Jerry was porting it out to me. You can go there and register, and it's free to register. So you can please go ahead and register. Yes, and invite your friends and family, like Jerry was saying earlier. Invite your friends and family to come. It's a very important day.
It's a fun day too. Last year was my first time going, and it was overwhelming. It was just so incredible to see all the people that were there.
And very educational too.
It is.
Very educational.
Yeah.
So is the only way we can get the list of representatives and assistants is to go out there and register? Because I know I won't be able to attend because I'm actually in the
if you look on your screen, we're under Final Thoughts. It says there's a website right there. You can go to that website, and you'll be able to find the information that you need for your legislator.
You'll just put in your information, like where you live, in your zip code. It'll come up with your representatives, all that information, and then you can send your stories to them directly. You can email them the stories, or like Jerry was saying earlier, you could snail mail it to them. But your representatives will come up. You can read a little bit about them, find out a little bit more about them. And if you are planning on coming out, you might see if there's anything that you kind of have some like-mindedness about, so you can kind of connect with them a little more too. So, but yes, if you can't come out, please, you can go to this website and get that information of your representatives, and just email those stories, and make them aware of what's going on. Thank you for asking.
That was another question I had. I'm used to working with all the representatives and stuff in Georgia, but I recently moved to Alabama. So for me, I would feel comfortable still staying with those Georgia representatives. Okay. But can I also speak to the Alabama representatives, just because technically that's where I live now?
Does Alabama have an advocacy day there?
They may. You know what you want to do is go to the Heartland chapter that covers. So it's,
okay.
It is, I think it's lupusheartland.org, and see if they have an advocacy day. I'm not sure, but it doesn't hurt for you to send your information to your legislators in Alabama. You can actually tell them what we're doing here in Georgia and encourage them, that they need to be looking at legislation. Kind of brag about what we're doing here. How does that sound?
There you go.
That sounds great. I didn't think about that, but that's awesome. But yeah, no.
There you go. You're doing your advocacy and you didn't even know it.
Right.
Okay. Any more questions about Advocacy Day or how to write your stories?
No, that's it.
Everyone good? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining in with us. We really appreciate it. And if you have not registered yet, please go ahead and go to the website and get registered if you'll be able to join us there on March 1st. It's really an interesting day.
It is. And remember to wear your purple.
And we'll see you then.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day.